Good evening, Crime Lab.
Hello there, I'm on project. How are you?
Yeah, very fine. Thank you very much. We'll come here today to discuss something that we've both been privy to in watching a video. I was just wondering about that video. What the things, if we can describe maybe what we saw, how it affected us, and give us a breakdown of that video for us, and then let's discuss that. So we don't need to mention names. We don't need to do any of that. We're discussing what we see as the first onlooker, as a viewer. What do you see? What do you take from it? If this is your first time in watching it, what do you take from it?
Well, yeah, let's put it into context so your viewers have a brief idea. It's very difficult to describe it without calling names, but we'll do our best to get you through it. Basically, a video came out this time last year, 2020, of a young lady who was abroad at the time, but she originates in the Brixton, South London area. And she done I guess you could call it a live video of herself while she was abroad. And she mentioned a particular name amongst others, names of men that, according to this lady, were child abusers and paedophiles and so on and so forth. The video got a lot of airtime this time last year, and for whatever reasons, it just fizzled away. Up until 2 or 3 days ago, when you sent me a copy of a later video, which has obviously happened in the last 5 days. How am I doing so far? I think I've got the kind of the bones of the story right so far. I believe the issue, anyway, for me anyway, is the manner in which this young lady has ousted these particular gentlemen. I don't know them. I don't know whether they are guilty of the offences that she has said, but for me, cut long story short, if they are guilty, any chance of them being prosecuted is being eroded by this young lady's actions. She's naming and shaming them. She's being derogatory to them. She's even gone as far as gone on a march locally with a megaphone and shouting this person's name out down the high street. Again, purporting to be looking out for the interest of, as she calls it, her client. I personally feel she's doing a lot of damage.
Can you tell me something? What is wrong with naming and shaming, please?
Well, we live in a democracy. So what that means is you could be guilty of the most heinous or heinous crime, but you must have a fair trial to ensure that whatever your punishment is right and proper for the crime. So, if we go back to medieval times, they'll say, right, put you in the center and let's just stone him to death or her to death because it just feels good or it seems like a good thing to do. We need to make sure that when people are prosecuted, they're prosecuted right. The trouble is with naming and shaming is, as I'm saying, this young lady has called this man's name out so much, it's unreal. Now, if it turns out that, let's jump forward, let's say it goes to court, and it turns out for whatever reasons that he's found not guilty, then what does that mean? It means exactly what it says, not guilty. So how do you then repair all of the names in this instance? It's not just any old name. You're being called a paedophile. Yeah? And you have
Rapist.
a rapist and a paedophile.
Mm.
Rapist and a paedophile. Double trouble, double whammy. So, you know, I'm all for naming and shaming. The point I'm getting to with this naming and shaming, let's revisit court. Let's now assume that he goes to court and he's found guilty of the said offences. Then his information is then fed into the public domain, and you're game. Everybody will know, and rightly so. Yes. If your children and your immediate family suffer as a result of that, that's on you. You know, kind of put yourself in that position where your actions are now having a knock-on effect on your family members. But you see, this is why when we watch these high-profile cases on TV, you know, the news reporters know they're not going to get any answers, but they'll still stand out there and wait. And they say, oh, can you tell us anything? And what did they say? Sorry, it's an ongoing investigation. Can't say nothing until trial's finished. That's standard. There's a reason for that, because anything that is said at that junction could influence and jeopardize the jury. And the jury must not be tainted and tarnished in any shape or form. So the trouble with this particular case that we're dealing with is that, let's assume one of the jury members, if this goes to court, is from the local area. He or she is going to know that person's name, if not indeed know that person. Okay, the person is a very popular person. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. Okay, the juror and jurors should judge the individual on the evidence put before them by the prosecution, not because they heard somebody in the gents' toilet said, well, I know somebody who knows him, and yeah, he's been at it for years. That's not evidence, that is hearsay. You get what I'm trying to say? And I think I just think the lady in question is doing a lot of damage, a hell of a lot of damage. I mean, there's so many things that if I was had an opportunity to talk to her like how I'm talking to you now, there's a lot of things that I would point out to her. But as I say, we're 12 months.
You never know who your followers are. So you know what, at the end of the day, what would you point out? Point them out, because anybody, you see, the thing that I have is some people want to be a voice for others based on maybe something they've gone through. So you find people take up positions in the community and start to raise awareness around those subjects that maybe they're experienced in. But it is a way that we do it, you know. And again, I think with somebody, you know how it all starts. Somebody get their camera out and then they become this newspaper report, this news reporter, social media reporter. So you've got people reporting left, right, and centre. That's what we home into, listen to the stories, don't we, all over the media, etc. So, you know, so what would the advice be? Where can the improvement be?
Well, I would, for a start, I mean, this is what I was going to begin to say, that she's already 12 months in, and I think to a certain extent, in my opinion, I think that the damage has already been done, and to a certain extent irreversible. But let's assume that I cottoned on to this time last year when it started. I would have taken the young lady to one side and say, look, you know, that's not the way forward. You're doing more harm than good. You're not providing any aftercare for your victims. You're if there is any truth in the allegations, then you're putting the victim at risk even further. Because
How?
well, because you now look, if the victim comes to you and says, look, Joe Blogg's done this to me 10 years ago, but Joe Bloggs is a prominent face in the local area that you see at least twice a week, although you don't talk to them. And then you as the advocate or spokesperson go out in a public platform or domain with a megaphone and start screaming that person's name out, saying that person's a rapist and a paedophile. That person is then going to automatically think, oh, well, I've been rumbled, but I'll play it off as long as I can. He's going to know to a certain extent it was one of X number of women he may have done these things to. So that's why I say he's putting, the lady's putting her client, if I can call her that, at risk.
Okay, what about when you're doing, you mentioned about megaphone and march, which was had security, whether they got the own security or whether the security is supplied by the police or whatever else. I mean, you know, when you've got to do a march, you do need to inform the police, full stop. But what about, I guess the police don't understand what contents we're going to be shouted out at a march. Now, are they, what happens there then? Because if you've got security or you've got police at the march, someone's talking, obviously it's not scripted, the motions go out there, don't they? So if you are pulling out someone's name on that march, isn't it being endorsed?
I see where you're going with this. It is a difficult one, but like I said earlier, this is the beauty of living in a democracy. But as I've often said to you more than once, as they say, the law in this country is an ass sometimes, okay? So you kind of just hit the nail on the head. You're going to go out there under the guise of the police, having a march, and you're going to slander someone. Yes? Now, the police officers who are the handful of them that are walking around the march, it's not for them to say to you, don't
because they don't know the story.
Because they don't know the story. Now, where a police officer may disable you and take the megaphone away from you is if you started effing and blinding, which then becomes a public order issue, especially in a public space. Section 5, or breach of the peace, breach of the Queen's peace, okay, causing unnecessary alarm and distress. You know, hot summer's afternoon, you know, down any high street in the country, women and children, you don't want somebody saying F this, F that, and all that over the mic when it's not a football match, is it? You know, if you're just trying to get your point across, then I would expect an officer to step in and disable the megaphone. But more to the point, she can get away with that, you know, voicing her opinion as she did, and think no more of it until a later date. It's how the person who's receiving it perceives it. Now, we know the chap in question has gone to his local police station and made some sort of complaint against her in relation to the things she's saying, which is why I'm saying it's very dangerous ground, because, you know, when you listen to what she's saying, she's not saying, oh, you know, you stole my marbles, okay, or you pinched my milk off of my doorstep 5 years ago. childish offence. She's not saying that. She is saying that he is the worst type of individual and committed the worst heinous type of crime. Yes. Now the trouble for her, until we hear otherwise, is she so far has not been able to produce anything that I've seen in the shape of evidence to support her claims. So what's going to happen now is she said what she said, the chap's gone to the police, he's complained, the police will look at it and know instantaneously. You think about how many sex offenders there are in this country, and there's a number of them that are under police protection, such as people's animosity towards them. So they you know, it's not something they're going to take lightly. So when they turn their microscope back at her and say, right, you know, what you're saying, love, is pretty deep and pretty serious. What have you got to substantiate this? It can't be, well, you know, my cousin's sister's uncle's brother told me down the pub. That doesn't wash. She got to have tangible evidence, credible evidence, evidence that is going to stand up in court so that 12 jurors, men and women, plus the judge, can look at it and say, you know what, based on this, I believe this man is guilty of the offence, or based on this, he's not guilty. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Now, if she can't do that, she's on a very, very slippery slope, because now her client has been exposed. Okay? Her client can't hide behind any shield of anonymity. Not only that, because this lady has chosen to go and do things in a cavalier fashion, she strikes me as somebody who may want to slam dunk the case and get this man arrested and locked up and thrown away the key, but she doesn't seem like a fan of police or law enforcement. That's just my own assessment. So she hasn't gone to them first to make them aware of what she is doing. Yes? Mm-hmm. We're all aware of these little groups that are going around, pedophilehunters.com. And what they do is they you know, so many different groups, they go around to the local police stations and they actually tell the police, look, you know, we've got a website and we're getting X number of hits. We're going to do a sting this weekend, so we might call you. That is now getting the police on side with them. If somebody does bite and they catch somebody who's been trolling the internet looking for underage boys and girls, obviously when they get caught and they get stung, the police come out and they arrest and take them away. This lady doesn't seem like she's courting the police in any shape or form. So she's starting.
Perhaps it's because they're not in the cut. You know, it's been, as you said earlier, sometimes they're doing it from another country, another area or something like that, so they don't fall under this jurisdiction again, do they?
No,
perhaps that's why it's done. When do you think that's why people do it? They think, you know what, I remember all of these people in the community that may have upset me. You know what, I'm going to go abroad, and when I go abroad, I'm going to name and I'm going to shame and I'm going to out them. I mean, them. How can you cease that then?
Well, I don't think you can cease it. I mean, I just think, to be honest, when she did it, it was probably something she was just getting around to do. She just happened to be on holiday or somewhere foreign when she done it. I mean, she was standing next to what looked like a very nice swimming pool hotel type of thing, and so it was quite contrasting what she was saying. Why you would want to bring up such a topic whilst you appear to be on your holiday, but that's for her to decide why she did it in the manner that she did it. But I think that obviously she's back here. The march was here. All of the other names for the people that she's been calling out are all here. And she seems quite prolific. She seems quite bolshy. She doesn't appear to be afraid of anyone, which is all great characteristics. But like yourself, I'm looking at the victim, and I'm also looking at, if I believe in you as a victim and I want justice for you, I have to act a certain way. Yes. I can't be jeopardizing your personal safety, and equally I can't be jeopardizing the case by being slanderous. You know, you run the risk. How many times have you seen court cases where two parties are arguing about whatever they're arguing about? One party just really digs a big hole for the other party with slander. When it gets to court, the judge throws the case out on the first day because there's been so much media coverage. Doesn't matter which 6 or 12 jurors you pick, each of them are going to have a little bit of that story in their head from watching the news. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So what it then means is that even though somebody is showing you, look, this is, you know, a white piece of paper with black writing on it, you might be still tempted to, oh no, it looks a bit pink to me, because you've been tarnished by what you've been hearing on the news and not focusing on the evidence. So this is why I say you run the risk of putting your client at even greater risk, because now there is a possibility the individual could have been guilty of the said offense, but because of all the media hype, he cannot get a fair trial, and he must get a fair trial. He must. That's the law in this land. Like it or lump it, he must get a fair trial. And if it's seen that he cannot get a fair trial because of all the imperfections in the way that this young lady is presenting her argument and her case, then he runs the risk of walking scot-free, as they say, when entirely he's guilty. You see what I'm saying? And I believe sometimes people focus on the slam dunk, you know, let's get him locked up for life and throw away the key. But there's a lot more than just, you know, throwing someone in prison and you know, throwing away the key. You've got to look at the statutes. Now, just loosely, this chap, I believe, is very late 40s, early 50s, probably could even be near 60, I believe. Very well known in his community. And I suspect these offences took place in the best part of the 80s and the 90s, okay? So the first thing that I would ask is, you know, she said she had 7 or 8 different victims. So I would ask, do you have witness statements from these 7 or 8 individuals, you know? Who took the statements? Yeah, statements mustn't be taken under the influence of alcohol. Things like that. So somebody taking a statement has to be reputable. Secondly, let's forget 7 or 8 victims. Let's focus on one victim. You take a statement today in 2021, right? And the lady says to you in question, the offence took place in, I don't know, all bar 1, Brixton High Road, 1987. What's your next move? That's 23 years ago, yeah? Probably the venue doesn't exist anymore. So any type of evidence to collect is long gone. There's, 23 years ago, CCTV was in its infancy. Very difficult to find any records. There were no camera phones. So unless somebody had a very good picture of the outside of the building, or indeed the inside of the building, very, 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 very difficult to paint the picture to the jury. Because remember, your case is historical now. Yeah, it's not something that happened last month. This is 23 years ago, for argument's sake. So there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done before you even get to the juicy, sexy bit. And I think this lady's time would be much better spent doing some of the things that I've suggested, rather than hailing this chap's name out with a megaphone, That's what I think. What do you think?
Well, when I see people trying to make a difference, at least bringing this conversations to the table, that's nice. It makes me feel like, wow, thank God there's somebody else here that's willing to raise awareness on these subjects. But the mannerism is just completely different, because I do worry about, one, that individual safety, two, the repercussions from, perhaps these alleged perpetrators on the victims. But I also wanted to point out that, when you listen intently to the story, to get it somewhat right before you make a comment. Yep. My other problem is, when you're talking about somebody who's high profile, is that some of those high profile people never got their hands dirty. Mm-hmm. They got other people. So even though you're going for the high profile person, mm-hmm. the little people that got their hands dirty on behalf of that high profile mm-hmm. person may be fidgety right now, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And may want to shut it down. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, what people do when it comes to survival and not having their name put out in public can be, you've heard it too. I don't want to give ideas, but you've mm-hmm. heard the outcomes or the disasters, etc. So, like I said, it doesn't always come down to that, the big man, or the big woman up top. Mm-hmm. It comes down to the little players, mm-hmm. yeah, the ones that perhaps did things for drugs, etc.
The
and
worker
so
bees.
Pardon?
The worker bees.
Well, yeah. So you just, like, you might be attacking them, but you might be just attacking everybody that was around that person. You know what I mean, mm-hmm. as well. But yeah. Then you are hearing the word saying, well, if they know, they're all complicit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So again, if something's done privately behind closed doors, and even if someone does hear a rumor, yeah, I did such and such with such a person, they might be just talking in general, whereas the victim will be saying, no, he raped me. Does mm-hmm. that mean that everybody should know what goes on in the bedroom with someone? Mm-hmm. It's not until you hear these stories, that's when you hear a story about what somebody has done to mm-hmm. somebody else. Otherwise, other than that, we'd be none the wiser, mm-hmm. So yeah, I just feel that you don't hear the news reporters, as you said, going out there with a story without getting the facts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for argument's sake, just before we came on air, I was listening to the highlights of the Galain Maxwell trial.
I don't know who that is.
Right, she's the former girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein, the paedophile who they claim committed suicide in prison a year or two back.
Yes, I know who he is.
Friend of Prince Andrew and all the rest of it. Now, she's been in jail for the last year or so on remand, because same type of thing. Number of ladies have come forward and they've said that not only did Epstein abuse the girls, but it was Ghislaine Maxwell who went out and got these girls who were, you know, down on their luck or trying to, you know, working in some crummy bar, trying to raise money to go to university. And it's alleged that she's handpicked these girls, brought them back home at different times, and then encouraged them and bamboozled them with their wealth. So these girls come from very disturbed and broken backgrounds. I mean, you know, when they see people taking a bath in pure Evian water and all of that, you can imagine their mouth hits the ground. They've got more money than you can spend. When they invite you to a party and Prince Andrew is there, and so on and so forth, you know these people are major players. Well, she's in the dock now answering similar type of questions. So I think the jury retired today, and they might be asked to you know, come back with a verdict before Christmas. And they're already saying if it's guilty, she's looking at life in prison, and she will be 60 on Saturday as well. So
yeah, but you're saying is she was. Are you saying that she was a groomer?
yes, basically that's what she's been accused of.
Grooming what? She was
Girls.
completely complicit to taking them somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, this is a different situation in a sense, because that was to get the acts done, whereas this ranch is not like that, is it? It's a different situation. It's more protesting against abuse.
What I was trying to get at is the manner in which information has been kept to a minimum. You only know something after it's been discussed in court, because it's now being reported on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once the judge has said, yeah, that can now go in the public domain.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
after trial. That's after it's sat in court, not beforehand. So what's happening is I'm judging the poor man, you're judging the poor man, everybody's judging the poor man. And unfortunately, given the nature of the crimes that have been alleged to have been committed, people always frown upon that instantly.
Yeah, it makes you angry when you hear it. It makes you instantly angry and instantly want to side with the person that's giving you the news.
Yes.
Because that's why I tuned in. I thought, you know what? Oh, someone's raising awareness, and I literally could, because it's close to my heart. I want that kind of stuff stopped.
Yeah.
I homed in on it, and I was attracted to the fact that somebody's trying to stop it. But and so therefore, when I heard the words alleged, I actually didn't hear the word alleged. I heard the words as they were. He is, or you know, I mean, it is branded, which I have to use the word alleged, though, you know. So the fact that they're branded that individual or individuals, there's plenty of them, a couple more, you know, it made me sick, because then you see a video of the individual and you see how that individual handles the questions. And how is an individual that's put on social media actually supposed to answer those questions? He ain't going to answer them questions truthfully, even if it was true. He's on social media in the public eye everywhere, yeah. Then he ain't going to answer those questions, is he? Straight away, because he ain't got time to plan, has he?
That's right, and I think as well, it's very biased and one-sided.
But other people are getting embroiled in it, because even if they go on, like I said, you go on as a viewer, and you know you can comment in the comments box, and when you comment in the comment box, you know, and have a comment, you can get attacked for having a comment, you know.
Well, you see, this is the problem all over. I guess not here in the UK, anywhere you go in the world.
Yeah.
with social media and this type of scenario, he said, she said, and so on and so forth. Which is hence why we have, in particular here in the UK, which is why we have the laws that we have. As much as we will complain about England is this and England is that, we do have some laws that do give us the opportunity, for argument's sake, for you and I to discuss this, how we're discussing it.
Yeah.
Anyone listening will know that we're doing our utmost to keep the people's names out of it, because we're trying to practice what we're preaching. You know, and for me, it's something that I if I had the opportunity, I would love to help the lady out, because like yourself, I think she's doing great work in raising, pardon me, the awareness. But unfortunately, it's the delivery that is going to flop the show. And it would be a crying shame if the chap is guilty of these offences, and due to a technicality, he gets to walk off free, you know? On the flip side, obviously law enforcement has been my thing for all of my adult working career. He must have a fair trial, because there is, and this is where it becomes a slippery slope, right? If he's taken to court and he's found not guilty, is it not guilty because he's generally not guilty? Or is it not guilty because you haven't built a strong enough case against him? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. In my book, there is a difference. However, not guilty is not guilty. And if he now decides to walk out of the courthouse now and start saying this woman is this and this woman is that, she slandered me, and look, I'm free, it creates a very dangerous precedence for the lady and for her client stroke victims, you know?
One of the things that because we have to have, in a sense, a little bit of evidence. Yes, we've heard the alleged perpetrator speak briefly. Yes, we've heard the commentator speak, and many of other commentators speaking on this. My only thing, and it clicked to me and it dawned on me today, if you are crying out for other people, to submit evidence or information around this in case it happened to them, why you not give out the crime number?
Right. Again, have they even got a crime number?
Well, that would be more evidential to reassure victims that there is an ongoing pending case with crime numbers in it, that any victim can come forward and speak. That would be more beneficial and more sound for people tuning in to know, and got reassurance that, you know what, this is real.
Yeah. If it was me, as I said to you when we were off air, I would be securing MG11s, which are witness statements.
Yeah.
Any pieces of items that we all laugh about, things, oh, throw that away, whatever, this, that. You remember Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, right? How many years later did she all out of the blue magic up a dress that had Bill Clinton's semen on it? Yeah, and the rest was history. Cost him the presidency of the United States. So, you know, let's just say, for argument's sake, this woman said, I was assaulted, 15 years ago. This was the dress I was wearing. I took it off and I just flung it in the back of my cupboard. It's been there ever since. Never washed it, never done nothing. There is a possibility, strong possibility, that there could be some trace evidence or whatever DNA has come a long way now from where it was 15, 20 years ago. They only need a microspeck, and they can narrow it down to who, how much 1 out of 10 billion people it is. So all of those types of things, I would be trying to secure, and that's what I think this lady needs to do. And as you rightly say, a crime number. Again, how I would have presented this case is I would have, had I had a platform like hers, would have said, hi, I'm investigating incidents of sexual assault and so on and so on, historic things, encounters. If you were around in the 80s and you went to this club and this club and that club and that club and this club, and you were assaulted between this time period and whatever, call me on the number on screen and we can talk. That for me would have been as far as she needed to go with a public outburst, if that makes sense. Yes? She's already got one person on board. I'm sure other people would have come forward. And then I would have taken the option that you said, go and get yourself a crime number. You don't need to divulge the person's name, but you could have said, look, there's a crime number. Even if you ring the police with it, the police not going to give you any information other than to confirm, yes, it's a crime number, because you wouldn't have been the author of the crime report, if that makes sense. Yes? So I can give you, I've got many crime numbers here on my desk. I can give you one now. Or any police force across the country will ring and say, yes, that is a crime, but what's your connection to it? You weren't the person who made the report, can't tell you anything further, but at least you would know, well, it's in the system. If she'd have done that 2 or 3 times, bearing in mind it's 2 or 3 individuals, but there seems to be one individual that she's focusing really heavily on, that would give people credence to come forward. It would make the individual a lot more shaky. At least, okay, I'm not saying the way that he's been called out now is great. That must be horrible. Man's got granddaughters and stuff like that, probably still got one, if not both parents walking around, and you hear that type of rhetoric to do with your family or friends or associates. That's not pleasant at all. And in the great scheme of things, how many people, if you go back to the Jimmy Savile case, a number of celebrities, including Jimmy Savile, were found out later on, prosecuted and sent to prison. There were a couple, though, that had similar allegations against them, but it was proven not to be the case.
I'm sorry for some of the victims, to be honest, because there are victims. I know, some victims out there, plenty of victims out there that have put their case forward, and really it's been thrown out, or there's been no justice. Either they are adamant it happened to them. When you get that not guilty verdict, that has got to be so excruciatingly painful for a victim to come forward, and that was my concern. If they've come that far to come forward in their approach to say, look, this happened to me, but having their case chucked out because, like you said, on a technicality, that would be enough sometimes. And I've seen it done. I've seen people do it enough to say, you know what, nothing else to believe in, because and they've ended their life because nobody believed in him when it really, really mattered. And that is why I said it's very important that when we're talking about rape or child abuse, any of those sensitive issues or domestic abuse, again, sensitive issues, you know, that has to be handled with care and grace.
Of course, the utmost care, and I hate to say, because it's like the lesser of two evils, I commend what she's trying to do, but I've got to pour cold water on how she's gone about it so far. And as I said earlier, but we're a year in. I don't know what's happened from December to December now, apart from what we've seen on the video, but I do know the video that came out first, I received it on my phone December last year. And like I said, it made a few shockwaves. A couple of people spoke about it and then it just disappeared. Obviously, we've all been wrapped up with COVID. Here we are, 2021 again, back in December. This has now popped up in the last 5 days. And it seems to have gained momentum. You know, she's gone on marches, as you've said. He's gone down the police station and trying to clear his name, and you can't blame the guy. Again, you've got to put him through his paces. You've got to put him in the witness stock, and you've got to cross-examine him. And you see this.
But what about like, I'm not going to stop until I have your head on a platter? What about things like accusations like that? I mean, how does that fit? I mean, I want to be fair all the way around here. Is to.
Well, it seems. I'll tell you how it seems. It seems heartfelt, but it also seems vindictive. Insofar as that, you know, as I said earlier, if you go to court and for whatever reason he's found not guilty, one is to respect that, but it seems like she would still want to go above and beyond. Do you think
they get blamed for that as well? This is the dangerous part, isn't it? You know what I mean? If you start going through court and then it flops or something like that,
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
How would they feel about that? I wonder, because
this is the thing, because this is why I say somebody needs to get hold of this young lady and sort of sit her down and say, listen, you know, if you are serious, and you must be serious to come out in the manner that you have come out and hail somebody out in the manner that you have done, and in all intents and purposes, this individual in his day, in his right, was, you know, well known and respected. So, you know, that's going to come as a shock to the people that know of this individual.
Even though, like you said, it was like last year, like, and then in the last couple of days, it's ignited.
Yes.
And it's ignited in fire.
Yes.
And I mean that because it did not just stop from that individual. It went to another TV channel, another YouTube channel, another YouTube channel, and another YouTube channel, you know, and God knows how many other YouTube channels. So everybody's kind of, a lot of people are like talking about it. And my concern is that a lot of people are turning on her, which they want to see that person removed because they feel that it's being damaging to the victims. Plus, people that are going on there, they're being tarnished again with names such as, oh, perhaps you're commenting because you're a perpetrator. Things like that is another accusation on top, right? That's another accusation on top. Of innocent people.
There was some elements that I picked up on both sides. People were saying this lady seems that she's got a vendetta against men. She did go pretty deep, hard down on the men kind of thing. But then on the flip side, she appears to have a couple of men supporting what she's doing. You know, so that's fine. But I again, you know, speaking openly here, one has to come out and say it. we need to put the ghetto flex down. Okay. The ghetto flex works when you're in the ghetto, when you're around the council estates, you know, when you're around the manor, you know, who shouts loudest is the baddest sort of thing, you know. That works at that foundation grassroots level. But when you're at this level and you are talking about taking somebody's liberty, you just walking into a police station or standing outside a police station and saying, this man's a paedophile, that don't cut it. It doesn't cut it. And I'm afraid that she's damaging the case for the individual she's representing. Even if she recuses herself and removes herself from the case, a proper solicitor to come in now and start doing proceedings, they're tainted.
Yeah, because the opposition, the accused, will come back and say what's
Yes.
already happened to him. So you lose sight of the rape case
Trial
and you start focusing on these accusations and the media attention that's there already.
Trial by social media.
Yeah, and he then can see what he, because one of the victims, alleged victims, I want to say that too, because one of the alleged victims, WhatsApp recording was played. A WhatsApp recording was played, a couple actually, even of different people. One was quite really pulling on my heartstrings, and that was an older lady, I can tell. And she was like saying, "I'm up for years. I've been wanting for this to come out. I knew that would come out." And we're even talking about murder in some of these voice messages. Yeah. And so what bothered me about the voice messages is, first of all, there's no face to them. Second of all, you know, you're contaminating evidence. Again, what security did you have in place for when you do expose this out? They might recognize these voices, and this is, you might have waited all this time to feel safe, but this way that it's being broadcasted is an unsafe way for the victims. And I'm worried about, I am worried. I do worry about that, because if I confided in someone about my rape, and they took my video and they took my message and they played that publicly on air, I'm going to get questions off air for sure. Second of all, I know that's your voice. I recognize your voice. And then, you know, your identity is out there, full stop. Second of all, when there's a lot of names being mentioned here, when there are a lot of names being mentioned here, and you're talking about giving to the solicitor, we don't know that when you play that voice message, that you've now gone out to do a hate campaign against these individuals, rightly or wrongly. It's what it's seen. Now, if we get down to interviewing the witnesses now, now we don't know their story. We don't know all of it. We only know partial snippets and maybe historic, or maybe there's a longer relationship there. We did hear snippet, "Oh, I've known of you for 40 something years, 45 years. That's 45 years you've still remained in that person's life. So if something recently has happened for you to then give over that WhatsApp, we don't know the circumstances of why you did that and whether or not it is a vendetta. So all those questions will be asked by the solicitor. Is it a personal attack? Is it a grievance? What's lost? How long have they been out, separated from each other? Were they out of the, did they run? Did they have to leave the location? Have they been in contact? You know, all of these things are very crucial for safety.
Well, I'll tell you something. This, the voice notes that you are mentioning, right?
Yep.
I listen to them also. And it's at that point when I listen to the voice notes, I realize that there is a good amount of substance within those voice notes. Although those voice notes are in relation to different crimes, they are in relation to the individual in question. And for me, remember, we're listening to this 2 or 3 days ago, right? The lady, like you rightly say, is an older lady. She mentioned two nightclubs that haven't been around for nearly 20 years, okay? I used to go to those nightclubs when I was a young man. So it all fits. She also, as you rightly pointed out, she also talked about a murder, which is less than 2 miles away from where those nightclubs originated. I'm not going to call them now, but you know, people find out, they'll watch it and see. So she's talking about nightclubs that are no longer there, that I know very, very well. At that time, you know, those people would have been involved, bearing in mind, this is a North London thing, and this saga is happening in South London, but the individuals in question are from South London. But these types of areas is where people would commute to, you know, north, south, east, west, and you know, basic postcode wars. But this is Friday, Saturday night. This is party night, okay? And then she mentions this murder in a particular area, just a mile down the road from these clubs. And it's like, oh my God. I remember there was a lot of murders where I grew up, but you know, certain things about what she said stood out for me. And I found that extremely dangerous. That, you know, 25 years later, these people are still walking around on the streets, not punished for the crimes that they committed. But what it showed now, and something else the lady said also, which is a big part of a lot of what causes our community problems. She actually says in the voice note, at the time, I didn't have my stay papers, meaning she didn't have the stamp on her passport. So she didn't want to get herself embroiled in nothing that would mean she could get sent back home, yeah, before she got to stay. So she put her own, if you will, citizenship before, you know, coming forward. And I ain't gonna criticize her for that. Who knows what she had going on in her family. But by all intents and purposes, it seems like she was also a victim too, because she said she was being blackmailed. So was it a case of, you know, if you don't do as I say, I tell immigration that you work in the local KFC and your papers are out of date? Could be. Look at what people are doing to get to England as we speak. People are dying every day in the English Channel, drowning, trying to get to England. So if you're here, if you manage to get through that and you're on English soil, I put it to you that you're going to pretty much do any goddamn thing you are told to do, no matter how bad or wrong it is, until you get legitimate stay. Yeah. So like I said, although those voice notes were slightly off topic, they relate to the man in question. And for me, that was the biggest indicator that there is some mileage in this story. This isn't just an angry black woman. Yes, there is something to this story. And
well, we did hear further into that when we looked at the march, that it nearly happened to them.
yes,
You know, with that person. So that in itself gives cause to why. Why. And again, though, you see, nearly or did, you know, what is it? You know, because you also could have the active duty to report that as well, and be taken seriously. But what this sounds to me is that you need other people to step forward to probably you know, secure whatever needs to be secured. But
Yeah.
that's the thing that bothers me, is that, you know, if that woman that's rallying around for this is a bit equally as that, and it nearly is just as good as when you flash back, it's just as good as, yeah. So when you flash back into this situation that they were in, you know, it's still, then I'd have questions around that. Why didn't you report it then? Or why isn't it being reported now? And why aren't you being taken serious now? You know, just on your one case alone. So there's a whole lot here that is, you know, when you're the viewer listening in, you're only getting one side. But
of course, yeah,
a couple.
Yeah.
Well, we've been privy to them answering back about the allegations, but quite frankly, you know, if you who admits, you put Prince Andrew on the dot and say, did you do it? You put him on the spot, he's gonna say, nah, speak to my lawyers.
He's already come out and said, no, you're gonna have to.
And again, with allegations like that would make me think to myself, okay, these people, without going on there, you're trying to defend yourself, because that's a bit of a blackmail. I'll get on there and tell us your side of it, and then we'll make believe you or not. The thing is about this is that any legal solicitor would tell you not to entertain right now.
Exactly.
Anything that, and even as you as a witness, we know, as you've been I've been a witness before, you know, when you're a witness in your case, you're even told to not even talk to the next people that are involved in the case.
That's right, you don't talk to no one, don't discuss the case outside
if this woman and this other victim and victims in the case, you like you say, when you're in the court, they tell you not to talk to one another in case it damages the case. So then that's where we have to be careful that it doesn't become like this hate crime, hate campaign, and then puts these people in, you know, in the line of question.
Well, I'm afraid
and deflect them from what bloody
crime
happens.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's already gone down that road. I mean, you know, the way she's got a lot of hate towards this individual. You know,
I would say, to be fair, that person has a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for, passion to secure a conviction.
Okay, I would agree with you, but I refer to that passion as exuberance, or in the form of a slam dunk. So what I mean by that is, okay, you want to get your message out there and get it to as many people as possible. Maximum damage with the least amount of effort. So what do? You call the person a paedophile and a rapist. That's as bar murder, that's the worst you can do, isn't it? Right? And you keep shouting that from the rooftops with a megaphone. Fine. But like we discussed earlier, you're not bringing no crime number to the table. You're not, just like how me and you talking now. We can say, right, well, look, we got a witness statement from the victim, the alleged victim. We've got a witness statement from somebody who was walking past and saw something. And we got a witness statement from somebody who was standing outside the room when it happened. Yes?
Yeah.
Now, when you start talking like that covertly, and you ain't naming nobody, those people involved start quaking in their boots. Because you're going to want to know who was outside the room, who's talking 20 years later. Yes? She's given her way her ace hand.
Yeah, which is very, very crucial here to like I always said, I think I said this as well. Look, you know, sometimes you just have to hold back just slightly until you got what you need. Yeah, just slightly until you got what you need, because doing this now, they see you coming. They
Of course.
see you coming and they've got time to plan.
Yeah.
Perpetrators, alleged perpetrators
Mhm.
have time to plan when they see you coming, particularly when you write all over Facebook or you put it all over where you got to put it out and you say what's going to happen next. They got time to plan. So you're giving them basically a get out of jail free card because they see you coming and they've got connections at the end of it, then they've got links to disappear. It's very simple, you know?
And let's not pull any punches here. I don't know what the chap's fine. I know he used to run a company before he was the head of a company.
Yeah. Well, we won't give that hype.
Yeah. I'm not going to say what that is either. Just he ran a company. But I don't know whether that company is still in existence. I don't know whether he made a fortune from it or whether or not he's a pensioner and getting his pension, if you know what I mean. Point being is, let's assume he's got money. If he's got money, he can put out an injunction on her, go to court and say, listen, stop this woman from saying what she's saying. There isn't a shred of evidence against me. She hasn't brought any evidence against me. All she's doing is standing up outside the town hall on a Friday afternoon. Kids
but
in
you
home.
see him at the police station in the next video.
Yeah.
That alleged perpetrator you saw at the police station wanting this person to stop, said he has to wait, etc. I don't know, but you see he went to the police station.
Yeah.
So yes, you got to report that as a crime, and get your crime number.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
that's a counter.
Okay,
counter allegation.
then you can go and get your solicitor. So I don't know what's what. I mean, you know, common sense would say, yeah, get someone to back that up. You know, but again, some people just, I don't know.
Well, the thing is for me with this young lady, where she's lost at least 50% of the game already, is that she's left a footprint thinking she's doing the right thing. So she's left, every video she's put out is derogatory towards this man. Yes? There's, you know, voice notes
and derogatory towards her guests.
Right, yeah,
and towards other people that said it happened to them. Yes.
Yeah, guests and so on, and other victims and all the rest of it. So that's the first thing. The second thing, all of that leaves evidence for this chap to come and say, look, Sergeant, this is why I'm making a complaint. Look, there's her outside the town hall. Yeah, shouting my name up with a megaphone.
And he can pull in any one of those witnesses that stand by her. He can utilize for him.
Exactly, because you now can't say that you wasn't there.
Because you know as well as I know, when you're a witness, you're doing a counter allegation, not just for you. You're actually speaking on behalf of them as well. Yeah. So was you there? Yeah, I was the witness. Okay. So so he can use you too to ask you questions, to discredit the things that you're saying. So this is where victims are literally come forward and they're interrogated. You know what I mean? Everybody has to be interrogated when their name is being brought into dispute. What part did you have a play in it? Why did you go and do that? You were, you know, and I believe, you know, this person will be pulled into a court case because they got evidence. Was you given the evidence? Well, yes. How did it come? And what part? Did you get all of it? What date? What time? All of that stuff. So putting all of that on the internet the way it is, I think this is why it hurts me, because you see that name in the top corner. When these victims are stepping forward, they're already vulnerable. They're already drinking. They're already, some of them are already a mess, frightened and disheveled and distressed.
So, of course, yeah, because these things is not things that happened last week. These is
but they're being spoken about each day. Each day that there's videos made, even this discussion, in a sense, even though we're not naming names, we're not playing back any of their videos or nothing like that. You know, you think about it, the other people are, and when the other people are, it's those victims that are on trial before they get to trial. They're on trial in the community before they even get to the point of standing behind the witness box.
Something that I think that we should mention also that often gets overlooked, although we are talking about it on it now, literally as we speak, is that I think for a lot of people, when they were abused and so on and so forth, 70s and 80s, there wasn't these platforms
No,
that you could come on.
no, there
So,
wasn't.
in most cases, people didn't go home and tell their mum or anything like that. You certainly wasn't going to tell your dad, and people have just sat on what happened to them for 25, 30 years.
And the rest.
And the rest. And then all of a sudden, in the last 10, 15 years, wallop, we're having this discussion now on social media. Okay, we're both in England right now, but you could be in Australia and I could be here, and it's crystal clear. That has given, you've heard the term keyboard warrior. It's given people a lot of power where they couldn't look you in the eye or stand in front of you face to face and say, I don't like you because of ABC. Now they can do it quite confidently at the tap of a button, press send, and away it goes. Equally, that has allowed people now to come out and voice their concerns and opinions in a way that they never did before. The trouble with it is that people, like they say, bigger is better, right? Well, the way this lady's gone about it is she's gone as big as you could go. She's gone right to the top, right with the worst of allegations, right out there, straight away, no room for maneuver, no slacking. And for me, not really thought about what she is doing. How do you explain to your client, sorry, we lost the case? Well, you're going to know how you lost the case, because the judge is going to read out, well, you didn't put together a strong enough case. There was no evidence to support your claims. Show us evidence and we can do something. With no evidence, we can't do nothing. And again, evidence is 25, 30 years old now. Places don't exist. Landscape is different. Something else I wanted to say. These people.
So isn't it enough? Isn't it enough for someone to say, I was raped 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 minutes ago? Isn't it enough when we're talking about historic anyway? Let's go there. Isn't it enough just to go to the police station? I was raped.
It is, but there's got to be some sort of details that coincide with that, because if not, you run the risk of the law being an ass again. So I can get up tomorrow morning, and I don't need to trivialize this, but I'm just trying to make a point of how far the other way the pendulum can swing. I can get up tomorrow morning, ring the police and say, officer, my Ferrari has been stolen. And he's to believe me. Yeah? No matter what I look like or how I dress. 40 years ago is a long time. You're gonna, and this is what I was getting to in the collection of evidence. You're going to have to tell somebody what you were wearing. Yes? What the person was wearing. Crucially, how many drinks you had. Were you under the influence of alcohol? We're now talking about people in their mid-40s, but we're talking about 25, 30 years ago. So if you do the math, you will see that some of these girls in particular were underage when they were out partying, and we all know that they did it. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So you find yourself in a precarious situation. Listen to what you're saying. You're saying that you were underage. You lied to your mum and dad, said you were going to your friend's house, and you snuck out and you found yourself in this nightclub for adults, however you snuck in,
There's the interrogation to try and
Yes.
discredit you.
Yeah, well, that's what the prosecution, that's what the defense is going to do.
Hmm.
Because the chap sitting on the other side said, no, it wasn't me, mate. I wasn't there that night.
Hmm.
Remember, 30 years ago.
One of the accusations is date rape. Date rape.
Right now, and this is the main thing, because let's focus on that. Date rape, 30 years ago. No CCTV.
I'm not so sure if this is recent or this is historic.
Oh, all right, okay. Well,
but I'm not.
yeah.
I'm not. That's not clear.
Yeah, well, okay. Even with the date rape, I mean, that's what they got Bill Cosby on. Okay, and he was doing them things in the 70s, right? So the point that I'm making is that there's no CCTV 30 years ago. Things were far more liberal than they are now. We're now catching up. We're now tightening up some of those liberal things, you know, that one once got away with. You can't do them things there no more, because people will speak out about such things. So how does a young girl who starting the conversation is possibly underage for a start, then that means that her credibility already is tarnished, unfortunately. Yes, that gives the defense something to work with. Oh, where was her parents? How could her parents not know she was out till 6 o'clock in the morning? So on and so forth. Bad parents, bad child.
Doesn't mean it didn't happen.
This
is right. So I'm just going to be. I'm just going to be a victim voice now.
Yeah. Of course, it doesn't. You're right.
So whatever you're saying, I
Yeah.
might come in and do what a victim probably would be asking. I've been a victim previously, so you're taking me through the courts now, and I will say to you, well, I know it happened.
Yes, and I will sympathise with you, and obviously I know you, so I know that you will play that role all day long. But unfortunately, the way that the statute is, and you must understand this from both sides of the coin, is that you've got to give me something that puts you and Joe Bloggs in this room 30 years ago. Something has to stand out that he can't wriggle out of. Where 30 years ago, no DNA, he was never arrested. You only now coming forward now, this, that, and all the rest of it, la-di-da-di-da, he's an upstanding member of the
Generally the case in that one victim steps forward. Listen, I stepped forward, let me say, I stepped forward because I heard somebody else saying, you know, that this is wrong. So I decided to step forward too. So
now, when that starts happening, that's when the case starts to look stronger. Stronger in numbers.
Yes.
Because you've had 30 years to pick any guy. Yeah? But you didn't. You chose this guy. Because you say this is the guy who did it to you. So now this other person's got a whiff of it and said, you know what? He did the same thing to me, but he didn't work there. He used to work at a next club on a Sunday night.
And then you start building up a picture
because
you then find out who else comes up.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Well, this lady said he worked there on Saturday. Yes, he did work there on Saturday, and he did work there on a Sunday too. And you know, you start beginning to, and look, you know, there will be people, and I think we even experienced this with this case that we're talking about. I don't know if it will trigger your memory, but somebody came on there, I think it's in relation to the voice notes. He was trying to clarify something. And he said, look, I know this person, and this is a man, right? And this person, he's guilty of what they're saying he's guilty of. Because I used to work for him, you know? And a lot of stuff went down that I saw. But you know how it is when you're working for somebody.
Be the first snitch. Actually, I have to be honest. If you're working for someone and you see what go down, why did it also take you that long to come forward?
Well, right. This is the thing, right? That is the same argument now. If you don't take the corona jab on January the 1st, now you ain't got a job. What you gonna do? You got your wife looking at you and 3 hungry children looking at you, and you're planning to go Disneyland next year.
Pressure.
You don't take this jab, you're not welcome back here tomorrow morning to come to work. It's the same difference. Boy, if I go and say, I saw the boss, you know, do this or do that, that's my job. That's what it always is. Remember as well, these people were, they were the faces. They were at the top of their game when these things were happening. They were powerful. They had money. They had influence. And a lot of the people that worked for them were the young and up and coming ones, male and female. So they were easy to manipulate. No different to what we're seeing now with the county lines. Yeah? Chicken shop hustle. What's the matter, my man? Look at your shoes, man. Your shoes are no good. Why are your shoes like that? What, your dad don't buy you no shoes? Well, I don't know who my dad is, man. I've never seen my dad. What? You don't know? Brethren, come, let me take you down JD, man. I'll buy, what you like, them TNs? Yeah, man, I'll buy you a pair of £60, that's nothing, man. I'll make that every 5 minutes. Oh, really?
So,
oh,
so that's grooming, vulnerable.
Grooming, right?
Vulnerable, yeah.
Vulnerable, right? They identify the vulnerability. They fix the problem by sticking a plaster over it. Child's got on busted trainers. They go and buy the latest trainers. The child thinks, oh my God, Christmas come double early. But the child doesn't understand because he's not being guided to look out and spot such things. Is he just received with open up, now you're in debt. And that debt is to do whatever it is I tell you to do. So if I tell you, take this rucksack, get on a train at Euston and go up Manchester and go look for Bob, and don't give it to no one other than Bob. Yeah? You know, this is, a lot of these kids are getting set up like that. They're getting robbed. They're set up to rob. And then you find yourself in, you know, 10, 20 grand's debt because you were robbed, and basically they set you up. So you were, it's all cowboy, but what it does is it means that you will do anything to stay alive, right? So if you now got a problem with another drug dealer in another area, they'll send 14-year-old kid. Ask yourself why every time you're hearing that 15-year-old boy dead. How did he die? Oh, he was attacked by another group of 12, 13 and 14-year-old boys. And you're like, huh? And they killed someone so viciously and so savagely because their life depended on it. Yes? When you see, you know, we've all watched Top Boy and all these different gangster programs, the life that they're depicting is what is so spot on with reality that sometimes it's difficult to tell whether what you're seeing is fake or real. And in most cases, it's almost spot on. It's just the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And these poor children find themselves victim to this thing. So when you say why these people didn't come forward at the time, such was the influence.
So there's now just want to highlight something, right, which is very, very crucial. If you say that and compare that situation there, why these people wouldn't come forward, you're about to say under the pressure, etc. And right, so now as victims of abuse, that's exactly why some of us don't come forward, because we're worried about the things. What you're sort of saying is we're worried about the repercussions, etc. And what, and here we are today discussing just how much evidence you've got to give over in cases of rape and paedophilia, etc. So yeah, so really where you're going with that is, again, very much the circumstances around how people behave, having to hold secrets or whether or not to come and tell, you know. So carry on.
Well, all right, okay. On that note, because it leads me nicely into what I'm going to say next. So people reluctant to go forward or come forward for all of the above. But now what you're talking about is you're talking about, in some instances, 25 and 30 years that people have held these things to themselves. And, you know, something happens that triggers something else. And then somebody like this chap comes forward and says, nah, yeah, he used to do that. And I think a lot of it is that people develop, people mature. And I think that's part of life. And I think as you get older, some of us do mature into, you know, really understanding what right and wrong, or the differences between right and wrong is. And, you know, these cases are coming up more and more and more. We realize how saturated our communities are with these type of behaviors. You know, everybody knows somebody who's been touched in that manner. Yes. And I think people become embodied now to talk. People aren't, you know, like you said, when you a 15-year-old vulnerable girl, right, and you've been manhandled by 2 or 3 men who are 25, 30 years old enough to be your dad, yeah, you're going to be scared. I mean, just last week I was watching a program about the grooming up in Rotherham, yeah, with 12 and 13-year-old girls and how they were treated by this grooming gang, and it's shocking the things that these young people have had to endure. But 25 to 30 years later, that in itself is a lifetime. That is a sentence in itself that people have held these wrongdoings in. And I think sometimes the wrongdoing comes out itself. It says, I'm not going to stay in here no more. I have to come out. I need to free this person. Yes. And they feel embodied and empowered. And I believe this may be where this young lady is at present. That's why I don't want to beat her up too much, pardon the pun, about the way that she's doing things, because that's the easiest thing to do. Just come out and scream it from the rooftops. But unfortunately, in this here democracy, that will skid you. Yeah. You go to court, they put a Bible on your hand, they tell you to swear. So you do, raise your right hand, put your left hand on the Bible. But, and you know, it's one of my classic sayings, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. If somebody hits you in the street and you lambasted them back in self-defense, you're going to prison. So the whole concept of swearing on the Bible with an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, to a certain extent, makes a mockery of that. You see what I'm trying to say? And that's why it's very dangerous for her to come out. You know, one, she's to be admired for doing so, but she needs to be advised. Like, put a lid on it, my love.
People are trying to advise, in a sense. I mean, I'll be honest. I'll be honest. You know, people are trying to advise. I try to advise in
I saw that. Yes,
in a healthy manner, and I got really ridiculed.
Unfortunately, I think for you there, with that instance that you're referring to there, because I've watched the clip also, I think I think what manifested itself there is, I think she probably felt you were trying to steal her limelight. I don't believe you were trying to do that at all. I was listening to what you were saying, and you were trying to sort of say to her, look, there's other ways of getting your message out, not like this. But she took that personal straight away. Again, is that her character or what? I don't know. I certainly don't think you did or said anything wrong to her, and then after a couple of minutes, then it got out of hand, where she said a few things even after you'd left the platform, you know, that doesn't really put her in a good light. And some of the things she said, just very small things, but there are keen listeners amongst us out there, and if they hear the things that you heard, they would probably feel the same way that you felt when she said those things to you, in particular as a victim. And that, unfortunately, is where she's going to lose support. So factor this in. You have a woman who's speaking up on behalf of other women, yeah? But she's not being supported by other women because she's not providing adequate supervision or care for the ladies that she's representing. It's as if those ladies are more of a commodity and an asset, yes? Mm-hmm. As opposed to a victim. So when you're saying to her, well, what about them? And she's saying, I don't care about them. That's a very, 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 very bold statement to make. She may regret that later on, because again, you see, if I was a defense barrister, would I use that in court to characterize how she's behaved? You bet your last dollar I would. Yes? Because it's my job to paint everything that she's saying in the worst possible light. Okay? She can't be trusted. Look how she's behaving. Due process has gone out the window. Naming and shaming my client, putting it on Facebook, doing this, had to get injunction against her. Boom, boom, boom. Where is the case about the lady who's been abused? That's been lost because the slander is, you can't get away from it. Yes? You can't get away from it. I touched on it earlier. What's his face? Dave Lee Travis, big Radio 1 DJ and all that in the 60s and 70s, I think right up to the 80s. Glittering career up until about 4 or 5 years ago, when these allegations of historical sex abuse come out after the Jimmy Savile thing. He ultimately was one of the very few that was found not guilty of these historic things. But he came out and said it's cost him over, check this out. You see, this is the thing when you've got money, yeah? It's cost him over £1 million. £1 million in solicitors' fees. He also lost his house. Okay, Google it, you can find it. I think they used to call him DLT. I think they used to nickname him Dave Lee Travis. When you see him, you'll recognize him. He's part of the Jimmy Savile clan, and he's of that area. When you recognize his face, he's quite a tall man, curly hair with big 80s style glasses. At the minute you see him, you'll recognize him. Yeah, only just last year or the year before, he was cleared of the allegations that went on for 3 or 4 years in light of Savile coming out and all the rest of it. Yeah, lost his house. reputation. And remember, this is a man. You go to his house and he's got nothing but silver platter on his walls for all of the things that he's done. Radio 1, top DJ of the year, this, that. He even did Top of the Pops.
Yeah, okay.
Right. The other person who
I don't know these people, you know. I'm
right,
just painting a picture of the story of what
well,
you're saying.
the one I'm going to mention, same scenario, is Cliff Richard. Same thing happened to Cliff Richard.
Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, again, I don't want to pass judgment on any of it. I'm not there. I didn't see the evidence. I didn't hear the case. I just heard a story.
Right. The point I'm making is that it's the same historical. He did this, he did that. But what I'm trying to say is that there have been a number of these high-profile cases, and most of them have found in favor of the victim. Yes.
Mhm.
Which, you know, is great for the victim. You also have to factor in that in the two cases that I've mentioned, it's a strong possibility that they are generally telling the truth, that they didn't do the things that they've been accused of, you know? And like I say, Cliff Richard, come on, Mr. The squeakiest, cleanest man ever. And now his reputation in tatters. I mean, he's at the end of his career, but it's not how you'd want to go out in your career, have a glittering 50, 60-year career, and then it's dogged by allegations of paedophilia in your final days. You know, again, £2 million solicitor's bill. £2 million.
I've got a little bit of feedback from this particular video, and somebody says that they've watched the videos, because I out of watching that video, somebody picked up at me being in it and then posted another video, with my name in it, and I wasn't, you know, it's like I didn't know it happened. It's like somebody's picked up on this story, and it's like, this is one of the comments. It says, I like how one brother stops it and commented and breaks it down, stops the video and comments and breaks down the video so it's more helpful. And there are people in this world to destroy the family, to destroy the black man, the black woman, destroy their own family, destroy their friends, destroy the world. We all need to pay attention and expose it in a way that keeps us all safe. You know, and that's the thing, is talking about it. Yes, raising it from the rooftops that, you know, the things of this nature should never be masked. We shouldn't keep secrets. You know, there are many people that haven't been able to speak against it, speak up against it, and they've had to live with this. Some get on with their lives, and some don't get on with their lives. They just exist for waiting for the day to tell their story. Some are still writing their story. I know an old lady who is, what is she? Probably coming up to 70 years old, and riddled with this story over and over again about what happened to her as a child, and doesn't seem to have had any kind of life of stability, with the same story being said daily to anybody who will listen. And you hear that this woman will say, look, I'm writing my story, and she'll name all the people involved and the schools involved, etc., and still nobody hears her story. And that's a shame and a sad way to die, over wanting to tell your story till the day you die. And that's sad. I mean, for me, I don't think I've ever exposed my perpetrator's name. Although, even though he's passed, I have never exposed his name. I've talked about my experience about abuse. I've talked about how important it is that people should protect their children at all costs. If people are having rocky relationships and it's domestic, we got to think about the children in the middle. We got to understand how it might affect them, and even how children are manipulated too into being sexually exploited and controlled, and even murdered and killed. Okay.
So in your instance, without going too deep into it, is there any particular reason why, as you just said, you've never named the perpetrator? Is that
I think first of all we need
here, or
well, he's not here,
family
but
ties or whatever? Or
do you know what? It's not until you're now talking about it, because again, you're talking to me about it, and it poses a question to myself, because I feel that, one, I've heard so many people, and I do suicide prevention for a living, and half of these people, majority of the people, have been abused, sexually abused, or you can hear their story, yeah. But some of these people are living with diagnoses and depression, just trying to come forward with it. And I think why I gave out a different way of telling my story, but I didn't think until now you're asking me that question, why I haven't told my story in that way. I haven't gone to the police, because when you hear people saying that they've gone to the police, and in such cases, what we're talking about now, that you're put on trial, you are interrogated as if you haven't been through enough.
yeah.
You're triggered, you're traumatizing, you're on edge, you are more panicky, nervy. Just the build up alone to tell somebody you were abused, that is your judge and jury right there, that first person that you tell. Yeah, that first person that you tell. So to go on and then go and put that in a court of law, you've got other people judging you, and maybe a jury coming to the conclusion whether or not you seem fit to be believed. What matters is the victim believes in what happened. That's what.
I guess you're also coming from a time where the culture is not to believe you anyway. So you have that, oh, well, if I go, they're not going to believe me anyway, so I just won't go.
But many people talk about historic abuse, that they can come forward and talk about their historic abuse. Well, what if the perpetrator is past? How am I, who is what, how are you going to mend me from that? Why am I going for compensation? Yeah, money from what? Somebody that didn't commit the crime on me? You know? So what am I going for? So why am I going to come for the court of law, whether or not they're going to believe me? Why do I need in the court of law these judges and jury to believe me if the perpetrator is no longer living? Now, if the perpetrator is living, if my perpetrator was living, would I step forward? And that is a very nerving question. If my parents, I'm not supposing everybody think like me. If my parents were alive, no. My own child asked me this question, why I did not go to the police, or why I didn't tell my own parents. If the parents were alive, given the nature of my parents, the history of my parents, the venom of my parents, if anybody troubles their family, I knew the consequences for that individual. And I knew the consequences then for my father, who may want to, or any of the people in the neighborhood who may have wanted to protect me. They would have had blood on their hands. They would have been incarcerated for taking matters into their own hands. And I took all of that into consideration, discreetly in my own head, you know. You more or less tell a friend that you're very close to, and more or less sometimes you're sharing the same story, you're sharing the same experience, only it's happening to them as well by another person within the community and one of your father's friends. So this, you find out that these men are that associated around your family. Yeah, everybody had a connection. So you don't just bring that in dispute that, yeah, it happened to me, but I know it happened to them too, you know, and then they got to tell their story and they weren't ready to tell their story. Yeah. And that can mess up their whole life. So I think, you know, for me as a young girl, I didn't tell because I didn't know what was right or what was wrong. Yeah, you don't, when you're having child abuse and you're being groomed, you don't identify it as sexual abuse because, again, no media was around back then. So you only had one another to talk to, and you barely would not say anything about those kind of stories. You knew to shut your mouth. Okay, but when we're talking about now, if I go and approach the police now, hi, I was raped. I was even every day, every time I go back into my hometown, I get off the train and I have to walk past the same house that I was date raped in. I know the person, I know the house, I can describe the attic, yeah, but I'm not prepared for the questions, and beside the point, they'll only deny it. And that's me, that's giving up all my life, my energy, putting my family on there for judge and jury to judge me to whether or not they're going to believe me. The police have failed enough people or myself over the time. I have no faith in the judicial system, but at times I still have to place my faith in the judicial system. But I just wonder sometimes, is it worth it if it's going to cost me my life and my health? That's all. Because you don't have much of a life when you're trying to fight for survival and deal with depression and make sense of the world. And so the little bit of life you do start to get back up, is that going to be pending in court cases? So I think it's about an individual's.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it depends on the individual, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the circumstances, because and it really does depend on the circumstances of stories, you know, because stories like what we're hearing, is that must be the most nerve-wracking to know that you're dealing with somebody high profile, you know, whereas so coming forward like that in itself is very brave, but somebody who is not high profile makes it easier to come out and say something to maybe the police or something, because you know there ain't going to be much repercussions coming back. You know they're a coward. Do you know what I mean? So it depends on the circumstances, who, where, what, and who the influences are.
Yeah, it certainly does.
But yeah, I'm gutted. I'm gutted. I would like to have been one of those women that said, you know what, I'll put my perpetrator on trial. But I put him on trial every single day of the week when I speak and I use my voice for other victims. I say, you know what, I can't change my past. I can't put it right. I can only use what happened to me to tell the story in an articulate way where I can say, people, look, these are the signs, these are the symptoms, this is what you can do, this is where you can go. But, you know, the way of getting your power back is to move forward from that situation. And I was challenged, what if they can't move forward? Well, the idea is that we need to get you to move forward. So let's get all the help possible that you can have. Yeah. You know, there's victim support is even available. Many people don't use victim support. They assume and they wait for the police. Yeah. But the police will not recommend necessarily victim support. So it's up to somebody to pass on that knowledge that victim support will work with you. There'll be a voice with you. And even there's a victim compensation scheme. Know about that too. Yeah. So again, you've got the right departments when it comes to abuse. You've got the rape places near to you, little places that are specialized into how to help victims of rape. You've got oh god, you've got victim domestic violence UK, victim support. You've got all those things at your fingertips now that you can find information
as well that you can go on and stuff.
Course, yeah, you've got courses, you've got people doing awareness around all of it to understand that maybe this is just not your fault. Yeah, because anybody that takes something from you and in its unwanted behavior and you said no, or they've just taken it from you, yeah, deserves to be penalized. you understand? Because for me, anyone that takes or harms somebody in that mannerism, rapes them, it takes them, you know, deserves to be put on trial, and deserves to at least have that investigated in the right mannerism, because every victim that comes forward and say, look, it happened to me, should have their voices heard. But unfortunately, and I'm going to be fair here, there are some people that will just say that word to get revenge on someone, because perhaps he went off and had an affair. Perhaps he got another woman pregnant. I'm saying, I'm going to put it back, he or she. Okay. So there are so many ways. And again, men don't come forward. A lot of men don't come forward and say they're raped. Okay. So again, we have to ask the men to stand up and be accountable for these things as well, to come and say, you know, to prevent it is to talk about it. If you expect us women to do it, you've got to do it too, because it's, you know, it don't stop just one man raping a woman. Some men are just not picky who they rape nowadays. So we have to counteract with one another to turn around and get this situation to be ceased or lessened, at least within the community. I want to come back with another topic about just who is in our community on another segment with you. That from your previous background, can you just reel off, really, if I was a victim and I come to you from your previous background and experience of dealing with people that may come to you about rape, what should they do? Could you please advise, please, if how to handle this situation? I don't know you.
First and foremost, record it with the police. Obviously, in your case, the person is no longer here or alive, so it becomes more difficult. However, you can bypass that step and you can go on to, you've already named it, like victim support and so on and so forth. And these people will work with you. They have all different types of liaison officers. A lot of money's been spent, a lot of training has been given, and these people are there to help you out of the crisis and help you to get through it. Now, if you, like, say, for the case that we've been talking about all evening, where the alleged perpetrator is still alive and the victim is still alive, I would say, you know, get that documented, any evidence that is available, secure it, and I'm talking about evidence has to be presented a certain way, okay? But without going into it too much, everybody's watched CSI, okay? So people,
I haven't.
that people are aware of how you secure evidence to a certain degree. What I'm saying is, if you just witnessed an assault, okay, two men fighting in the street, one man hit another man with a baseball bat, and one man runs off and drops the baseball bat, are you going to pick that baseball bat up with your bare hands?
No, because you leave fingerprints.
Exactly. So that means even though you say you didn't watch CSI, you know exactly what to do. That's the point that I'm making. So most people would know to, you know, hey, don't touch that, or get a cloth, pick it up, wait till the police come and say, look, officer, the man who assaulted this man here, this is what he had. Yeah, the officer will see you obviously you've got to be careful not to rub the man's prints off of it, but he will see that you're covering, you know, a part.
But it's not even that, it's fabric fibers now, so be careful with the cloth too, you know.
Fibers as well, exactly.
Yeah, just leave it. Yeah,
we're working on old-fashioned Dick Tracy fingerprints with you know, big massive magnifying glass. Like you say, it's quite correct what you say. Those days are over. We're dealing with fibers. Okay, one fiber from your 10-year-old jumper is enough to get you convicted. You know,
put you at the scene of the crime.
If you're at the scene of the crime, is enough to get you convicted for life.
Right.
Okay. If you know, especially if the defense cannot prove that the police cross-contaminated the evidence when they spoke to you. So, you know, the officer said, right, can I take your statement? And you said yes. And then he got you to sign. And by you signing, leaning on him, you rubbed off on him. Then he was the person who went and processed the evidence. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly how DNA gets transferred. But as you correctly pointed out, it's fibers. So that there's lots. But going back to the question that you asked me, I would definitely say go forward, and I would also strongly suggest that you go forward and do things correctly. Again, I don't want to pour too much cold water on this lady that we've been discussing all evening, but the way that has been done is detrimental to the ladies. That she started off with a good heart, trying to help these ladies, but for me, the way that she's doing things, she's putting them more at a disadvantage in my book.
But it's not just, I just want to add, and I have to add this because I'm feeling it. It's not just detrimental to those ladies. It's detrimental to anybody that comments, or because extremely, I think, was put out, and that means anyone can go in it and have the conversation about it. But right, how you handled is a different situation, right? So anybody that goes on there and willing to want to discuss anything about this situation is also made target. I mean, clearly, you know, or susceptible for being contacted. I mean, I've been contacted already just by appearing there and having my say. You know, like, come on, you know, safety, what about safety? And in doing that, I'm having to answer to other people now. Well, look, you know, I don't really want to get into it about the individual in question. My purpose is, like we're having this discussion now, you know, it's more of, look, how can we get positive awareness about the situation out there, rather than how I was handled, you know what I mean? How other guests have been handled, because it's affected their life. I mean, I was sent an email. I can read this out to you. I was sent an email, but I can only, obviously, I'll be very discreet. It was, and I was shocked. I thought, oh my God, they've found me. They've come from the video and found me to contact me. Yeah. Although I did leave my name in, etc., because I came in there to mean no harm, you know.
Right.
If I thought harm was going to be there, I wouldn't have left my name. But hey, I came in there to just try and protect, as I always do. I always try to protect my fellow brothers and sisters. When I see people out there, I do try to protect, you know, by saying, look, I've been down this path before, man, you're be careful, or I've learned this knowledge about how to do things, you know, and all you want to do is pass on that knowledge so you can protect, you know, so you can do it in a healthy, wet manner. It was, I hope this message finds you well. I've just viewed your video, and I totally agree with you. With the naming and shaming shouldn't be done. Okay. The community live is just to hang people out to dry, and if you don't fit the narrative, then it's very disturbing. Another YouTuber has been warning that individual of the consequences of her naming and shaming videos, and the name is, and I'm not going to mention the name, okay? I believe you both could have a conversation about what you see, and probably come to some understanding of how it probably should be done more on the lawful side. You know, it goes on to say people should hear a balance of the topic, and it's been able to hear the right way of justice and get the right way for them to self-heal. Because a young woman and girls who are listening to this channel, or rather a large scale, are learning the wrong way to get justice, will end up with no justice or any form of healing.
And that's precisely the point that I was trying to make. Young girls see that and think, oh, I know how to get my perpetrator punished. I'll just go on Facebook and YouTube and just hail him out.
Yeah, and it goes on to...
That's the worst thing that you could possibly do.
it goes on to say, this individual is not in it to protect women or children. She's in it for donations to help maintain her lifestyle abroad, and she's only in here in England because of lockdown, and was happy screaming alleged perpetrator's name while living in another country. Anyone who has a different point of view is called a paedophile, and a paedophile protector, or a man speaking out. You must be a rapist too. This is dangerous, and I don't know how social media platforms or police or lawsuits haven't taken it down. There is nothing healthy about this at all. Thank you for speaking up. And anyone intelligent, this individual cuts them off because they cannot converse, and feels threatened when people might when people might awake up and see what she is doing is wrong. A massive thank you to you. What you're doing is truly amazing. I guess, again, you know, when you hear them, maybe other people speak out, you kind of might want to sort of say, you know, hang on a minute, mate, I know where you're coming from, but don't you think you're a little bit harsh? Because I guess I'm so soft that I do care what happens to people. You know, I do see the good in some people. You know, I'm not talking about the alleged perpetrators. I'm talking about the people that do try to make the difference. I do see that good, but you know, like you said on the final note, that any good that you do, if you don't do it in an articulate way, you can undo that.
Well, of course, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else before we wrap up? Because we've been on here discussing, and I would like to definitely talk about the next topic, which we will love, and that's going to take a little bit of research.
Yeah.
So
I think the final thing for me really was just in the last bit that you said. I know we touched on it earlier, but this issue of her living abroad. As I said at the beginning, I do know that when she put the first video out, she was indeed in a foreign country. What country that was, I don't know. But it appears that, and this might be why we've not seen any more videos, but people are saying that she's you know, doing it for financial gain and so on. I do know she has a GoFundMe page. I've seen it. That there is money being donated to it, so it's an active page. So I'm going to do a bit more research on that and see where that leads. But I just think, as a final note in general, if people have suffered at the hands of others, come forward wherever it is you are. Find, you know, the police, find a spokesperson, find an advocate. Yes. Somebody look, if you've been holding this secret for 30 years, yes, hold it for another 5 days to make sure that the person you choose to represent you really does have your best interests at heart. Yes. Again, I'm not saying this lady doesn't, although we're hearing to the contrary, oh, she's trying to fund her lifestyle. Again, that's hearsay. We haven't proven that yet. What I will say, though, is we have witnessed her saying, oh, I don't care about this and I don't care about that. That's a bad thing to say publicly when you're trying to show people that you care. Okay? So, you know, to those people who may be suffering in silence but are contemplating coming forward, just take a moment to check, you know, who's representing you. I mean, look, if you are that uncertain, there's things in place. Like you know, you could go to your employer now and say to your employer, look, I've got this going on at home. Let's call it domestic violence, yeah? And your employer is duty bound to do something about it insofar as safeguard you. That means ringing the police and whatever. So if your boss is a nice person and always been nice to you, and you can confide in your boss or supervisor at work more so than a family member or a friend, then utilize your boss or your supervisor at work. Go forward and be prepared. Yes, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah, it will be uncomfortable because you're going to have to relive that trauma more than once. Whoever you're telling the story to help you needs to hear it in its entirety. Okay, you told that person. Then you've got to bring in another advisor. So you've got to tell that person again. Then you've got to tell the next advisor. Then you've got to go to court 5 days a week for 3 months.
So could I do reasonable adjustments for this? Because I mean,
Yes.
many people don't know what it is. So for me, for reasonable adjustments, I think I would, if this was me and I wanted to tell my story in a discreet way, and I thought, you know what, I can't, there is ways of getting that video recorded so you don't have to regurgitate it over and over again, and the video can be used as evidence. Your testimonial, again, there are other ways of doing that yourself, recording that and then saying, you know what, I couldn't bear for me to memorize all of this when I come and approach you, so I've documented it in a video and I present it to you, the police, and then there is my testimonial there, so it's clear. So therefore, when somebody's writing down your your statement again, you can always refer back to that video, because at the time that you want to express and remember, it's there. When you sometimes have to leave things for a while, the memory just can just play funny tricks on you. So therefore, at the end of the day, when you do remember key elements, get a pen and paper, write that down for yourself. This is me as a victim.
Well,
for the victims, I would say, when it comes to memory, recalling, because memory recall, because I have to say, it took 20 something years before it was identified what happened to me.
On the grounds of memory, we mentioned it earlier, with the galain Maxwell trial, there's been four accusers, 4 young women, grown women now in their mid-30s now. One of the 4 women kept a very extensive diary from way back when these things was going on, the early 90s, and that has really paid dividends. What this one lady's diary has done has given a lot of credence to the other 3 girls who never kept a diary.
Yeah,
because it's not something that she went in the bathroom and scribbled last night. You can see this is her diary. She's an avid diary writer. She's always been like that from a child. So it's safe to assume that what she wrote that happened to her at the time really did happen. And that's played a massive part in this trial over the last couple of days. So yes, writing stuff down, even like you say, it's historic, but if it comes to you now, jot it down,
Yeah.
And you can make sense of it later. Just before you go, I mean, when police write statements, as you know, sometimes it takes them 2 or 3 times to get the statement just right, because people remember things differently depending on what the situation is, And some people, witness really bad road collisions and stuff, or train collisions, and they can't remember why they were on the train, but they know they were on the train and they saw this. And it takes, 2 or 3 attempts before they say, yes, that's it. Now I remember. This is why I was sitting in this seat, because would have helped build a wider, clearer picture for the jurors to make their decision. Because remember, they weren't there, and you're trying to put them as close as in a front seat position.
Sometimes it doesn't even get to the jurors. We just get to the CPS, and that's the end of that.
Well, yes. I mean, sometimes. Again, I don't want to beat
And not to put people off. That's why it's very key to be you know, just take your time to remember every detail that you can,
Yes.
you know, when presenting your case. For me, like I said, it's a very touchy area to talk about these circumstances, isn't it? These things. I mean, people say, oh, you're still, oh, people make judgment on me by seeing a video years ago. And years ago, yeah, I might have been affected by a lot of stuff that was happening, you know, didn't have a voice in those ways, but I've learned to sort of talk now and present what I need to say in a way where, you know, if I ever actually talk about a situation and I ain't named anybody in it or nothing like that,
Yeah.
I could actually then say, you know what, oh, this person's done this person's done that to me later if it comes back or whatever else. And I don't have to name. Sometimes people will name themselves. If they target you, they name themselves. You know what I mean? So again, I think safety is important. To be believed is really important.
Yes,
again, that works both ways. So again, you know, people feel that, oh, are you protecting perpetrators? I would never protect a perpetrator. I feel that it steals life. It wrecks lives. And then somebody asked me, what would you want to be? What do you want to happen to these people? Even when they go to jail, is it enough? Is it enough? Enough for me is getting your life back. Yeah, that's for me. Is to get your life back, because like I said, it strips years out of people's lives.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I hope people that are listening to this gets the right support, the right help, the right guidance. Don't be afraid to step forward. There's plenty of information in this as to how you can protect yourself.
Yeah, I know. It's something I would like to add just at the end of this as well. Obviously, you know, it's December 2021 now, a couple of days away from Christmas, and as well as this COVID, the best part of this year has been dominated with a range of stories in relation to violence against women and stuff. So, you know, we've had a few high-profile convictions. Sadly, we've had, you know, women murdered by serving police officers and all types of stuff. We've also had 2 police officers just sentenced last week, I believe, for you know, gross misconduct, taking you know, pictures of the 2 dead sisters who were murdered late last year. So, as much as the police need to do a lot of work within on themselves, a few of them have been chastised and sent rightfully to prison for the crimes that they committed. So the point I'm making is that, you know, women shouldn't not come forward or in fact anybody who's got historical, or even if it's last week,
men or women, men and women
come forward, you know, because the more pressure you apply, is the harder it is for the perpetrators to wriggle out of it, you know. So come forward now, as they say, now is the time. You know, people like yourself kept quiet for all these years, and you know,
as I'm sitting here, I'm wondering if I missed out something. So, and I want to just elaborate how you identify yourself as an individual. And I'm not about to identify what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is, I said men and women, okay, and I don't want to leave out anyone who identifies themselves as any kind of anything else, a gender or something like that. All right. So I'm saying for anybody, any human being.
Right, that's
happened to,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
If it's happened to, yeah, because it bothered me, because what was missing, and I talk about people putting on courses for against domestic abuse, and it's aimed at men. It's aimed for men. I mean, it's for women, but they do it for men as well. But what's missing is we didn't see one for transgender. So this is why I keep saying we've got to be careful here that everybody is inclusive in this information. So so that's why I wanted to point out and just be inclusive of the information.
I think that, again, that is a very grey area also.
I understand it's a grey area, but we're talking about when we're talking about rape, we're talking about that it can happen to anybody and they can identify themselves however they want to identify themselves. And it seems to,
yes,
it seems to people want to give a reason for doing things, and it's disgusting.
Yes, and I also want to point out that there is a case probably put to bed now last year. I'll have to dig it up and give you the specifics of it, but basically this is in relation to what you're saying, but this just shows how even at this level it can be manipulated to suit somebody with evil intentions. There is a man who is let me get this right. I don't know if I think he was pre-op, but he began the hormone treatment, okay, to change from a man to a woman. Yes.
And then they change all their identity and their name and everything else, don't they?
Right. Yes. But he's convicted of a crime. But he got sent to a woman's prison. But he's still a man. But it's because he identifies as a woman and he's undergoing the treatment. He ain't had the operation yet, but he's been on the hormones for X number of time. And there's a threshold for how long, you can't just say, oh, when did you take the pill, mate? Oh, I took it this morning. No, that don't count. If you've been taking the pill from last year to go through the changes before the op, all of these things count. Now, this man then went on to commit further offences in prison, in a female prison, as a prisoner, against women. But he technically he's still a man because he ain't had the operation yet. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that needs to be addressed, right, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm going to try to dig that up, right? Because that'd be a good one to talk about. Because that's why when you mentioned that about transgender, I thought I'd better mention that because it does work both ways. So imagine you taking a course and Sally sitting in the front row doesn't tell you she used to be a man, but you're addressing her as a woman because she looks like a woman, but she's got male tendencies because in essence she's still a man. So there's a lot, without digressing, but I think that you're right to say include everybody, because everybody, regardless of what you choose to identify yourself in or as, it could be subject to abuse, whatever abuse that may be.
Right. I'm going to wrap this up now.
Okay.
When you find the article, I think we should come back and discuss that, because that will fit nicely with the discussion that I do want to have with you around of who is in your area. Okay, yes. So that will fit very, very nicely with the next segment. Thank you very much. We are just two voices here having an opinion, just having an opinion really, and giving out a little bit of knowledge. And I want to say to any of the victims out there, it is possible to have your life back, get your life back on track and more, and not let them take over your whole entire life. I mean, I think for me, it ripped my life up for over 40 something years. I still deal with I'm still in the recovery. I think people that have gone through trauma like that will always be in recovery, because you never know what you're up against, whether again you be victim blamed, you know, particularly again when you may comment on something and somebody might say, no, that's not true. You could be gaslighted and things like that. So all of these things become more triggering, and it makes you have to, it can make someone or it can break someone. Okay. And I think at the end, I think I've for my own self, you know, over the years, I've been ridiculed, I've been mocked, I've been named, I've been shamed, I've had that all on me before, but it's knowing what to do, even in those circumstances, what to do with that information, you know. And again, not when people do things to you, it can strip you years of your life and even affect your family's life. So therefore, it's key, really. Strength is to take your power back. Yeah, it's to live, not just exist, live. And I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult to rebuild after trauma. I've been there, but it can be done, and you can have a moderately successful life, you know.
Small steps.
Small steps, and put yourself on. I mean, I still put myself on, because anyone say, oh, she's mental. Darling, I have a diagnosis. Yeah, I have a disability caused by abuse. Yeah, and I'm talking about it. I'm still, it doesn't make me whether the fact that I can't help other people. It just makes me stronger, helping other people in a productive way, by providing those workshops, by getting my education, by being able to help other victims out there, and that is men and women, you know, to get their life back on track. And I think that's what, you know, raising awareness is somebody has to do that job. And with doing that job and putting yourself out publicly, you subject yourself to criticism.
Oh yeah, of course you do, because there's going to be people who detest you or don't like you. I mean, look, we've been, pardon the pun, beating this lady up this evening.
Stop using that word then. I don't like it. You say pardon the pun. You mean, you know, I don't like that word. So I would like not to be associated with that word. All right.
Okay.
It's distasteful for me, especially in what we're talking about. So for me, I would say we have been having a conversation about such events, and looking at the way one is conducting themselves, you know.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to take anything away from what she's doing, but as we've been saying all evening, it's the manner in which she's been doing it. Not trying to knock her off the pedestal, but it's not productive to herself or the people she's trying to represent, you know. So let's just hope that she takes the advice. As you said, there's been several people, pardon me, sort of saying the same thing we've been saying. Just take a step back and re-evaluate how you attack this situation, and it do you some good, you know.
Because you know that, you know, again, yeah, safety. That's the last word, safety.
Yeah.
All right.
Hope she takes that on board.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We'll catch you again. All right.
Yes.